Welcome to St James Conversations. Today I'm talking about a passage from John's Gospel, chapter 10, which talks of Jesus being the Good Shepherd. A few years ago I was on retreat in Northern Ireland, and one afternoon I took a walk and passed a field full of sheep. I became aware of a shepherd and his young collie dog coming in and rounding up the sheep. The reason I know that this is a young sheepdog is because he kept calling out to her, "Take time, take time." And that simple call slowed the sheepdog down, and she listened and obeyed the shepherd. Together, they herded the sheep into the pen where the shepherd wanted them to be. If she didn't listen to the shepherd and she rushed at the sheep, she risked scattering them across the field. But the shepherd's caring voice guided her to herd the sheep together and direct them into the place of safety that they were destined to go to. Well, in our gospel today, we see that the Good Shepherd is the one who puts the sheep before all else. The world can be a dangerous place, and sheep need shepherds. They need them to direct them. They need them to protect them and keep them safe. If sheep are scattered, they can be picked off by wolves and other predators, one by one. So they need to be gathered together so that they can be easily defended and kept safe. The Good Shepherd, as the Gospel tells us, doesn't run in the face of threat, doesn't abandon the sheep like a hired hand might do. The Good Shepherd stays and guards the sheep and defends them against predators. Well, Jesus identifies himself as the Good Shepherd. He saves those who belong to him. He puts himself in their place, facing death so that they can live. Now we too belong to Jesus, and Jesus has willingly laid down his life for us and taken it up again in his resurrection so he could be with us, our Good Shepherd, forever. The Good Shepherd offers pasture that nourishes and sustains life, and he calls each member of his flock by name. How? Well, it's because he knows each one individually, and that applies to us. Jesus knows each one of us individually. And I would suggest that this passage is encouraging us to get to know Jesus, to recognise his voice, that strong and caring voice, never forceful, never accusing, but one voice lovingly guiding us. Just as the Good Shepherd gathers his sheep together, protecting and nourishing them, Jesus gathers us together in communities, in churches, to lovingly keep us safe and nourished as well. These churches, these communities of support enable us to get to know Jesus and understand his voice better. But they also provide that day-to-day community of support that in those times of need and times of crisis will be there for us. Going back to Northern Ireland and that field of sheep, and the sheepdog and her shepherd. To do her job well, the sheepdog needed to know her shepherd. She needed to understand his voice, to recognise his voice, directing where he wanted her to lead the sheep. And the sheep responded to the shepherd and the sheepdog working together as a team. Hearing the shepherd tell his dog, "Take time," And seeing his dog slow down in response remind me that it's important for us to slow down and to take time to hear his voice, to pray, and to enjoy being in Jesus, the Good Shepherd's presence, receiving his love and guidance, which in turn enables us to love and serve others well. One reason that Christianity spread so quickly and so far in the ancient world is that no one had ever looked after the sick or the friendless with the self-sacrifice that the early Christians showed. And that love came from knowing their Good Shepherd, Jesus. Jesus made it clear that he planned to gather others, not of this fold. Back then, that meant people who were not Jews, known as the Gentiles. Today, the principle applies in terms of welcoming all whom Jesus draws to himself and include them in our community, no matter how different they are to us or how diverse they may be. To conclude, there are 3 points to take away from this conversation today. The first is that Jesus is the Good Shepherd who knows the needs of his flock. He knows each of us and exactly what we need. Secondly, I encourage you to get to know Jesus' voice, that strong, caring voice, that voice that's never forceful, never accusing, but one that is loving in his guiding of each one of us. And we can get to recognise his voice by reading scripture and what it says about him, dwelling in it, reflecting upon it, and praying, giving Jesus the chance to hear our honest prayers to him. And finally, let your experience of Jesus' love, Jesus' healing love even, give you courage to speak the truth about Jesus and invite others to come and be part of his flock too.